Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Now, this video is a bit of a post-mortem. We're going to have a look at how badly Michael Matheson failed as Health Secretary. And by these failures alone, he should have gone. He should have been fired, let alone resigned. And that's before all the controversy and awfulness and whatever happened over the iPad, the attempted fraud, the lies and everything else. When we look at how bad he actually was as a health minister, you can probably say he was the worst health minister until Neil Gray's figures come in. Because I think Neil Gray will be even worse. Seems to be progressive, isn't it? Bad, worse, 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 worse. And they just each say, hold my beer, when they see how bad the previous one was, and attempt to make it even worse all the way down. Who knows why? Perhaps it's just to protect the likes of Humza Yousaf by having constantly worse ones to make him look better. Who knows? But Matheson has failed on every metric you can imagine, and we're going to take a look at these metrics and just mind-blowing how bad he was. Here goes. So, Michael Matheson's health failures exposed as 72 targets were missed while he had an eye on his iPad scandal. So 72 targets that should have been met that weren't met. Meanwhile, he wasn't doing his job because he was worrying about his iPad. He was worrying if the truth ever came out about what he was actually watching. We know it must be pretty degenerate. Otherwise, he'd have said, no, it's only football and handed it over and proved it was only football. So the very fact that isn't happening makes us suspect it was utter degenerate filth. And I don't suppose anyone would be surprised if it was. Humza Yousaf's close ally stepped down as Health Secretary last week and has faced calls to quit Holyrood altogether if it's found he lied to the presiding officer, because he will not be trusted anymore. If you're lying like that, how can anyone ever believe you? Certainly not, of course, your constituents. The NHS in Scotland missed an astonishing 72 targets while Michael Matheson was Health Secretary, it has emerged. Matheson, who resigned his ministerial role in disgrace last week over his £11,000 iPad bill scandal, took over the position at the end of March last year. So he was only in position, 11 months. So he's missed 72 targets in 11 months. That's astonishing, isn't it? Analysis by the Scottish Conservatives has now laid bare the failures he presided over while in charge of the Under Pressure Health Service. He was handed the role by his friend First Minister Humza Yousaf, with his title even boosted to include NHS Recovery. How's that recovery going, guys? Is it getting better, or is it doing the other thing? That's right, it's doing the other thing, isn't it? It's getting worse. Far, far worse. Far worse, I think, than anyone could have possibly imagined it would ever get. But the Tories pointed out that the Scottish Government's own target of seeing A&E patients within 4 hours 95% of the time was missed 54 times, either on a weekly or monthly basis during his tenure. The Falkirk West MSP, who is coming under pressure to quit Holyrood altogether, also failed to meet any single quarter target for 31 or 62-day standard for cancer patients to begin treatment after being referred. So he not once, never once, hit the cancer treatment standard. Now, 62 days is enough for a cancer to take hold and become completely lethal. That's what his ineptness, that's what his inability to do the job is. It's killing people. It's utterly killing people. So yes, he does need to go. He needs to resign as an MP, or an MSP, completely. The only trouble, of course, is, what's he going to do? He's got no skills, no talents, he's a failure, he's failed in everything. He's now seen to be a fraudster, a liar, a cheat, someone who doesn't even care for his family, willing to throw his kids under the bus. And he's going to go and try and get a job. Doing what? Stacking shelves at Sainsbury's, because that's about as much as he's ever going to get. No one will ever put him in a position of authority or trust again. And of course, once he loses his salary and his wife's looking at him, this pathetic, empty creature sitting there, what's she going to do? Well, she's going to divorce him, isn't she? She's going to up sticks, take the kids and leave. and tell him, what a sad man he is. And all because he threw his kids under the bus. Had it been anything else, she may have even given him a bit of sympathy. But I don't think that's going to happen now. Certainly, a woman wouldn't be hanging with such a loser like that, would she? Anyway, a target to ensure 90% of young people seeking access to mental health services do so within 18 weeks was missed throughout his time. So again, young people needing mental health, and we know that for anyone 18 to 30, that age group, the single biggest killer in that age group, particularly men, is self-ending, self-deletion. And mental health, therefore, is important. And he failed to meet it once. And you have to wonder how many young people ended their own lives under his watch because he was too busy wondering about what he was wanking to in a Moroccan hotel room. Scottish Conservative Deputy Health Spokesperson Tess White said Mr Matheson had become completely distracted by his iPad scandal, but she added he was just the latest in a long line of SNP health secretaries who've miserably failed to get a grip of the crisis, including Yousaf himself. And of course now Neil Gray's there. I don't have any confidence that things are going to get better. Neil Gray has been massively over-promoted into a role he's unsuitable for, he has no experience at, he's never held any position where he has to deal with people on the same way as he's got to do so in health. He's failing day one. He's already a day one failure. And there's a story about that which I will come to later. See, we don't just throw these things together. Get a bit of a heads up there. Which is why, of course, I take this moment to say, if you do enjoy the show, do hit the like button on the chat on this video. But also, while you're hitting the like button, press that subscribe button. It really helps. Plus, you don't want to miss stuff. Anyway, she urged Mr Matheson's successor, Neil Gray, to back Tory plans to save the crippled service. Ms White said this damning analysis fully exposes that Michael Matheson was never up to the job of running Scotland's NHS. The SNP have never had anyone up to the job of doing that. They've all been failures because everything they do is done with one hand tied behind the back, because even if they're buying mops to clean a floor, it's how can we buy these mops in such a way that it aids independence? That's literally how they think of everything. Everything has to be seen through that prism of independence. And of course, money is spent on independence and not spent where it's needed. The NHS. During the last few months of his tenure, he was completely distracted and discredited due to his £11,000 iPad bill. And it was shameful that Humza Yousaf stood by him and that he took so long to do the right thing and resign. He didn't do the right thing. He was forced into it. If he was to do the right thing, he'd have done it day one. Even before his focus was elsewhere, Michael Matheson's record as a health secretary was scandalous, and analysis shows that in less than a year in his role, he missed key targets on an astonishing 72 times. From A&E waiting times to cancer treatment times and targets for vulnerable young people to access mental health service, Michael Matheson missed them all. He was the latest in a long line of SNP health secretaries who've miserably failed to get a grip of the crisis facing the NHS. And Neil Gray has inherited a poisoned chalice thanks to Matheson's overwhelming failures. And if he wants to avoid repeating his predecessor's mistakes, he should take a leaf out of the Conservatives' bold and ambitious health paper, she says, and embrace our modern, efficient and local approach to the NHS. Well, that's just politicking. But she's not wrong about the failures. Anyway, the report into his behaviour, Matheson's, will be made public shortly, possibly as early as next week. It is expected to suggest that Matheson, who's entitled to a severance package of over £12,000, tax-free, lied to presiding officer Alistair Johnson about its usage, something critics say would make his position as an MSP untenable. The Scottish Government has been approached for comment, but there was no comment because they are trying to still protect that lying fraudster. I don't know why. Coming up. So his record is one of death. He will be remembered for that. The legacy of death. That's what he is. All those people who have died sitting in A&E. Even the ones who've died in ambulances because they couldn't get into A&E. A 19-hour wait in an ambulance in a car park is not unheard of. You have the people who went with a niggle and have turned into stage 4 cancer, and some even died of cancer before they've even seen an oncologist because cancer waiting times are so long. And how many young people have taken their own lives because they could not get access to a mental health professional. Death walks and surrounds Michael Matheson. He must go as an MSP and take himself out of society. Just go away and never raise his head again. He should be ashamed, and he should be shamed by us for what he is. A failure, a liar, a fraudster, and ultimately a man who failed so badly in his job that untold people died. Thank you very much for watching. Do please hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video, and I'll speak to you later.